Hey, this is William back at Northern Brewer HQ, and as promised last week in the Grainfather G40 unboxing video, we're back here to cover our first brew day with it. So we're going to cover setup, app connectivity, some tips and tricks that we learned on our first time out, and some user errors to help you avoid in the future. So for brew day, we took it back to my place in my brewery. For setup, I jumped right into it and set up the controller to the system. It walks you through it. It's super easy. Took me maybe 5 minutes. I took some screenshots to help everybody guide through that. So yeah, when you first plug it in, turn it on, and hook up the controller, it instantly gives you a step-by-step instruction. So if you're connecting to the app with your phone, it'll give you steps for that. Or if you're just doing a manual brew day and not using your phone at all, it'll get you to go that way as well. It gives you screen alerts for where to go on your phone, exactly like what to do in your settings. And then it just tells you on each step what to select. Then it actually accesses your Wi-Fi network as well to get that paired to the control box. It's going to be a network named G40 and then a series of numbers after that so that you know that's the correct one. Once it's connected, it gives you the classic loading symbol. In a couple less than a minute, it was connected and ready to use. Once it's connected, it asks if you're going to use it remotely, which means that you're going to use your phone, or if you're going to do it manually. Every time you turn on the system, it asks you that right away. Ours needed a firmware update, and it actually alerted us on the app and on the controller, so you can do it through the app or the control box. I waited till after our first brew day to update it, and updated afterwards. Also super smooth, easy to do, on-screen guide just to follow through, and it was, again, a minute or two for it to update. Super simple. Great to see that, because a lot of times when you get this much technology and things, they can be very cumbersome and daunting at times, I think, and it walked you through it. It was super slick. Before we jump into the meat of the brew day, if you like equipment tests and review videos, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel, and you'll get notified as soon as we have more coming out. Now let's get into the brew day. I was pretty excited. We were pretty excited to brew on it, maybe a little too excited. High gravity kit, learning curve on a new system, any new system really. So we went with Dragon Silk Stout, which is our largest grain bill. So it comes in at 21.5 pounds, definitely pushing the system and a no sparge setup that we did for the first brew day. So it definitely, you'll see it was right to the top, but figured why not jump right in. There you go. Once the strike water came up temp, you drop the rolled edge bottom plate into the grain basket, which is just awesome and nice because it just goes in.
What's the matter?
We're not in the grain basket. In a perfect world, you remember to add the mash basket first instead of getting a couple scoops of grain in there. You might notice.
What happened, William?
Forgot the grain basket.
We quickly adjusted and just kind of pumped out the strike water that was in there, cleaned it out so that there was no grain outside that. Round two.
Yeah.
Put the grain basket back in and then poured it all down through the grain basket so that the little bit of grain that was in there made it into the basket. So no hiccups. It was a short 5-10 minute detour on a brew day. Definitely done much worse. So, and it was actually really easy to fix on the G40, to the credit, having that pump there just to pump it out into a spare kettle and drop it all in. So like I said, it was a minor hiccup and it was a quick recovery for us. So once all the grain's in there, you're going to want to start recirculating so you get the wort nice and evenly heated, and you just make sure all the enzymes are mixing around good. One tip after talking to Grainfather, when you do go to use that pump on there, at the top of the recirculating port, there's a valve. Good tip to just always have that off before the pump turns on. So the pump will turn on, then turn that on right after. Same thing if you're shutting the pump off, turn that off and then turn the pump off. It makes it a little bit more fluid, especially if you're mashing in. That pump turning on could just suck that grain bed down pretty quickly and get a stuck sparge. Which didn't happen in this video, but in a second video, or in a second test brew, I did get a stuck Sparge, and it actually alerted me to that in the app that might be happening, and it gave me some recommendations to avoid that, and I followed it and fixed it, and it was pretty cool actually to see that was built into the intelligence of the app. Because basically what happened is the grain bed just compacted real quick, and the pump could sense that it was having to work harder to suck down, and so it just alerted me to a stuck mash, and then just recommended stirring it, which is all I did, and it fixed it. Help prevent that, like I was saying, you want to start with that valve off, turn the pump on, and then start turning that valve to help regulate the flow of the recirculating wort. You want just enough flow so that you'll see it start to mix. You also see that the grains will start to kind of settle and set that bed, and you'll get a nice couple inches of wort on top. And then from there, I mean, system kind of takes control. It will monitor the temps for you, ramp it up or down depending on if it's getting a little too warm or too cold. It'll alert you to heating up Sparge water if you're going to be using Sparge water. Otherwise, for the duration of the mash, it does its thing, and then it'll alert you that mash temp is ending, or that mash step is ending and it's going to the next step. The app will give you an alert. The control box itself has a beeping noise that will alert you. You can hear it pretty far away. It sounds like a truck backing up kind of. But it's definitely a nice attention getter too, especially if you kind of lose track of your phone or the battery dies or your phone updates in the middle of brew day on you. It'll do that for every mash step, so it'll alert you that either your mash is done or you're going to the next mash step. It'll start ramping the temp for you for mash out or the next mash step. It's all the same process for each type of mash step. So again, it'll reach the end of those, make the alerts, and then when it's finally time to come to a boil, it will tell you that the mash is completely done. The app on the screen of the controller on the G40, it does give you a little bit more information than just the app. So it does remind you to take out the recirculating tube first prior to lifting the basket, because that will be in the way of the basket. It also reminds you to remove the grain basket before boiling. But otherwise, yeah, it's pretty simple. Once that alert comes up, you'll see we used our brew in the bag pulley system to help lift the basket out. For larger grain bills, it's a lot easier. For small grain bills, it's still really easy. Anytime you go to lift those grain baskets, I just think it's, you're committing to it and you have to go all the way. And so that pulley just gives you that nicer security of, you don't have to go all the way if it's a little bit heavier than you thought. It's just a nice little feature, not needed, but it's definitely helpful. And I'd say if you're doing larger batches, 10-gallon batches, it's definitely something you're going to want to do and take advantage of the little hook on the grain basket handle that's built there for you to use something like that. The pulley system, I threw it up pretty quickly. So the system I use is our brew in the bag pulley system. And then I just have, it's called Unistrut. You can find it at any hardware store really. And I just have that screwed into 2 rafters with anchor bolts, rated for, they each will hold a couple 100 pounds. So you want to make sure that it's well secured, because you don't want all that wet, hot grain hanging there not secure, and then that to come crashing down on you or splash or whatnot. So once the grain basket's lifted and either suspended over or resting on the brackets inside, it starts heating to a boil. The grains just kind of run off the entire time until 200, 210, something like that, where it's pretty close. And then I finally get the grains out of the way and tend to the boil. So for this recipe, we had one of the hop additions right away, and that's kind of it. So kind of made for a boring boil day, but that's what it is. Being 220 with a 3300 watt heating element, it does heat up very quickly. It's wider than the G30 if you're used to brewing on that, so you get more evaporation coming out of it, more steam. It's quite a bit more steam than I was used to from the G30. So slight adjustments there, especially with my brewery. I don't have the best ventilation right now just because I haven't had to deal with too much steam. And I brew a lot in the wintertime, and in Minnesota it's dry, so it's kind of nice. So once the boil's reached, pretty much just kind of takes care of itself, a lot like the mash steps. So for this recipe, there was one other hop addition. It alerted me to the time to add that hop addition. Pretty straightforward from that point. And then once the boil's done, it's chill time. There's a couple differences on the G40 versus G30 if that's what you're familiar with. So again, you're gonna want to start with that valve closed. Hook the chiller into the recirculating port. What I like to do is just recirculate that wort back into the G40 for 2 minutes. That's just gonna make sure the inside of that chiller is clean, sanitized, so that no nasty bits are in there at all. Once that's done, same thing. Turn that valve off, turn the pump off, then take the wort output of the chiller, and you'll see this is going into another Grainfather item. It's Grainfather Conical. That's my personal Grainfather Conical. I love them. They're really nice, I think. Pumping it into there. You can adjust the flow rate. It's recommended to just play with the flow rate of the wort and the water to make sure that you're hitting your pitching temperature. A little spoiled, and I also have the glycol chiller, so I don't necessarily worry too much about the temp coming out, because I know the chiller will knock off the few extra degrees relatively quickly. So it's just kind of a nice one less thing to worry about on brew day type of thing. As you can see, as we're draining it out, you'll start to see that the trube cone and then the hot filter plate will start to show as well. You'll see that filter is great. I mean, the pump was able to suck pretty much every piece of liquid through there and into the fermenter. It caked it on there. It's really dry, kind of hard to clean, but hey, better than in my beer in the fermenter. So it was pretty impressive to see that for sure. That was a lot of true big beer, so it worked pretty well, which also results in super clear wort going into the fermenter as well. All in all, it was a very quick, easy brew day for never using this system before and jumping right in. Pretty pleased with it. A couple of things I would probably do just slightly different. When we finish the boil, I'd probably add a whirlpool step. You saw how much trube and junk that hot filter collected, and it did kind of displace out throughout the whole hot filter. So I have brewed since that video, and I've started whirlpooling, just using a simple spoon and swirling it. You could use the recirculation port and do it that way, but I kept it simple. Swirled it up, got a good rotation going, and let it go, and definitely formed a bigger hop cone, and then allowed more of those outside perforations for wort to filter through. I also started to throttle the pump towards the end there, just so it wasn't pumping as fast and hard through the filter plate, just to make sure we got all the wort out and nothing got stuck on top. No issue, worked great either way. A big tip there is when you're done chilling, turn that valve off, then the pump. On the second brew day, I realized how much actual wort is still left in the chiller and in those tubings, so I just took the one end that I was plugged into the G40, unplugged that, lifted it up so everything could just gravity drain out of the chiller into the fermenter. And I didn't measure it, but I was slightly below my target volume, and once I did that, I was dead on, so got right there. Nice little trick. I know everybody likes to try and save as much wort and beer in the end as possible, so you'll get a couple more glasses doing that. Grainfather does say that it's a system designed for 10-gallon batches. We did a large 5-gallon batch. The brews I've done prior have also been 5-gallon batches, but it's sized to do 10 gallons. I don't think there'd be any issues with it doing 10 gallons. I think it'd be very comfortable to use, nice and easy. We'll be doing more tests in the future and sharing those videos with you, and we'll include 10-gallon batches, more appropriate to ABV as well, a little bit more average, 6 to 4%, something like that. I had done our dead ringer, and that was super easy for the system to do. Second brew day went super well with that, and which is an average size kit. I added a Sparge to that. Everything went well. Same perks of the control box, just alerting me to a lot of stuff. That was super nice because my phone actually did update in the middle of that, and so I had to use the control box, which was just as easy as using the phone. And then my phone came back online, and it picked right up where brew day had stopped, so I didn't lose any steps along the way, which was super nice to see. The Grainfather G40 is available now on northernbrewer.com. So go ahead and check out the link below, and we'll get more detailed information on the G40. You can order there. I love the system. They're not getting it back.